Hey everyone, that was, you might recognize the voice because that was the artist Junip. But I played, the lead singer is Jose Gonzalez, and I've played his solo stuff before. So that's the song Don't Let It Pass. So as we do, let's take a look at the lyrics. And even just looking at the album cover, I mean, there's a lot going on here. The mountaintop, the volcano erupting, but it's like a sunshine, and then there's like a face within it. So as above, so below. And then this Trinity symbol with the sacred geometry, the twin pillars or twin moons. So yeah, there's a lot going on here. So the song Don't Let It Pass. What's in your hand? You're pinned down to routines. Elevate and leave the flickering screen. So just what's in your hand, our phones, our devices, are all these things that there's nothing inherently wrong with them. But when we use them unconsciously, well, when we're unconscious, they begin to use us, or those who have intended to use us can use us. So we're pinned down to routines. And this is just an invitation to elevate and leave the flickering screen and come back to where nothing is compromised, nothing is lost. When everything is realized with real eyes, nothing is crossed. But don't let it pass. Don't get locked in. Everything starts way from within. So just like everything we talk about, it's all within. So this is an invitation to let go of the constant attention on the external and bring it back to what truly matters, which is where it all starts and where it all truly is. All within. And it repeats where nothing is compromised, nothing is lost. Repeats again. And don't let it pass. So it's like meditation, or this connection to ourselves, really, connection to that focal point within, or God, or however you want to describe it, your higher self. It's a fleeting connection. It's very difficult to maintain, and there's purpose in that. We enjoy the challenge of maintaining that connection, and it's like how I'd imagine surfing would be, riding the wave. It's challenging to stay balanced on that, but wow, how exhilarating is it to ride that wave. So don't let it pass. Don't fall off the wave. Maintain that balance, even though it's, I mean, maybe not impossible, but next to impossible to maintain, and certainly impossible to maintain indefinitely. And that's the fun of it. So we get back up and find a better way to balance and stay in it, and stay in the space of not letting it pass. Because we want to come back to that space where nothing is compromised, nothing is lost, where everything is realized and nothing is crossed. So yeah, that's the song by Junip, Don't Let It Pass. So I hope you enjoyed that. And just want to remind, I've had some people ask about the music for these shows, and I've been doing this for over a year now, every show showcasing at least a couple songs, and I've kept the vast majority of them in a single playlist. So if you go to my website and go to any post with these shows, so this is the one from last week, and you can see this link here just above the video. And this will take you straight to a playlist where most of them are still kept. I mean, I can't help if some of them get taken off YouTube, so sometimes they do get pulled off, but it's a very long playlist, 174, that's funny, 174 songs on here so far, and I'll add these two from today. So you got quite a playlist to work with if you want to just come shuffle these or work through them. So I'll keep adding to those. I'd love to, if I ever sit down and do this, but I'd love to put it into a Spotify playlist as well. Or if somebody wants to volunteer for that, that would be awesome. But just to keep track of all the music that has been shared, and it's a fun one to just sample through. So you can find that there on any site post. And again, just welcome today. Welcome to another episode of Quest-i-on, the quest to illuminate the single eye. So to turn that single eye on, which is that connection point. So don't let it pass. Maintain that light illuminated so that we can hold on to that connection with the divine. So that's what we do in these shows, is just have an opportunity to gather and to ask questions and see what's on our mind. And there's really nothing that's off limits, nothing we can't talk about, because it's all relates to the same. So there's no such thing as a dumb question or topic that we can't talk about. So feel free to bring anything forward if you do. I do love to give priority to those who are here on the show. So if you find yourself wanting to chime in, just make sure to raise your hand and I will open up your mic. So if you're new to Telegram, just hit that center button and that will flag to me to open up your mic. And then you can toggle that on and off to open your mic and speak. And this is just like a fun little phone call, with friends. We're just gathered to share, and I'm not here claiming to have all the answers. I'm just doing my humble best to show up and help as I can. But I do love that there are others on these calls that like to help as well. So if you find yourself having some insight and you want to share on a particular topic, feel free to chime in and share away. Should be another fun one, as they often are. And just to give an update on me, I just recently, just a couple of days ago, got back to New York and back to Darth and Joanna's place, which has been so lovely to be back. And, just to get back in the swing of things and start getting back in the routine. So, really, really enjoying being back in the space. It was a wonderful trip all around. Got to see lots of family and friends reconnect in lots of different ways, which was very, very wonderful to be a part of. So I hope your time this winter season has been wonderful. The transition of the seasons, and as we move through this wintry time, hope you find it within you to continue shedding all that no longer serves you, so that we can prepare for spring, prepare for new life. But we are here now in the dead of winter, which is the death, because it's the time of letting that which no longer serves us to die and let that go. So I hope you're enjoying that process. And I guess I mentioned before that I went down to North Carolina and was helping the Foxhole Foundation deliver aid and supplies and things of that nature, campers and RVs, to those in need from after the hurricane. And I had mentioned that I was going to share a video once they got the compilation up and running. So I'm just going to play this real quickly, just so you can see some of the stuff that we did while we were there. And they're still continuing to do lots of things. That Jeff is just constantly working. Him and Evan are constantly going around. Nadine is constantly online on different podcasts, spreading the message. So they are like, it's amazing how much work they do. And they're truly a wonderful group of people. So I'm going to play this video just so you can see kind of some of the stuff that we did and get an idea there.
What are we doing? We got people to bless? We got people to bless in Jesus' name. We got people to bless in Jesus' name. Jeff, come on, man. Here, I need you with me, Sentence. Come on, I need you with me. Let's go.
I live my life, do the best that I can. I'll laugh and I'll cry and try not to bend when the cold away close, won't shiver or shake. To take care of you, we'll do whatever it takes.
Hey, you just called? You remember me from last time? My name's Evan Davis. I came by one time and dropped off some propane, a little bit of firewood, and we're with the Foxhole Foundation. I just wanted to come by. You were sick last time. And since you were sick, I thought maybe we'd come by and wish you a Merry Christmas one more time. How about that? Can I get a hug?
I can hug you now. I can hug you now.
Merry Christmas, sweetheart.
Merry Christmas. Sam doesn't bite, by the way. Thank you so very much.
We love y'all so much, and y'all just have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. It really helps.
God bless you. Y'all are on God's list.
Don't give up on me, I won't give up on you. I made you a vow, now God knows that I'll do whatever it takes. There's rust and there's dents on this beat up car.
I am going to put you on the spot.
And Deidre and the whole gang went in on a little Christmas party.
Little Foxhole Foundation Christmas.
Yeah, look that verse up.
Solomon, as long as the truck and his getting ready to put this thing around. Do you see this? I don't even know what to do with myself right now because
I'll be a rock, come hell or
he's more magnificent than anything I can ever
down, I'll not. Don't give up on me, I won't give up on you. I made you a vow, now God knows that I'll do
How about get a generator?
whatever it takes.
We love you. Merry Christmas.
Have a Merry Christmas.
From the Foxhole Foundation right here in Rock Hill, South Carolina, signing off.
When the day gets the best of me, and I'm fighting to believe, I just have to look in your eyes.
Two Rivers Redwood.
You are mine.
Yeah, so I got one. Here's, so we put them in there, and that's for you. And this one right here, $1,000 in there for you. And here's $500.
We love you, brother. We love you so much, Keister.
We know what you're doing for your community.
Whatever it takes.
Smoke Watcher 1 down here at the Watayuga Medical Center in Boone, North Carolina. I'm here to deliver our last envelope. This is it. It's been a long day. It's about 6:30 p.m. our time. We're delivering on behalf of the people from America. Foxhole Foundation is going to bless a brand new baby brought into this world just less than 24 hours ago. Hands and feet, the hands and feet. And it's the Christmas spirit. It's what it's all about. The birth of Christ was what this was all about. So let's go celebrate together.
Yeah, so there you go. There's that video was put together by Deirdre. Fantastic job, just to show some of the pictures and videos and things during the time while we were there, and they're still there, many of them. I think they are. Yeah, it's amazing to see all this stuff. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, and again reiterate that if you want to help out any which way with the Foxhole Foundation, you can go to foxholefoundation.org, and you can donate directly to them or find ways that you can get connected. So it's a wonderful group of people, and they are just continuing to help lots and lots. And on that note, I will be going down to Orlando. So Ohio Brett, some of you, I'm not real familiar with his work, but I've heard he's been a big patriot, truther. It seems like a really humble, just good guy, real man of God. And he's having a gathering for the Hula Bowl in Orlando, and Foxhole Foundation is going to go down there, and they've been offered accommodations and tickets to that. And they invited me to come along. So I'll be, it is one of those God-inspired moments, because I wasn't really planning on it. I don't have a lot of extra to afford things like that, but I was like, whatever, let's just take a look at flights and see what it looks like, and see if God gives me a sign in that. And sure enough, when I look at flights for that, it's like the very first price of a ticket was $93 for a round trip. So very inexpensive, and $93. And if you're not aware, in Gematria, Justin is 93. So right there, God was saying, hey, yeah, you should go get the ticket. And so I'm going on a budget flight down to Orlando just for the weekend, next weekend, spending time with them. We're going to do some networking and talking with more people. So I'm going to be helping them, with whatever they need in that space down there. So that should be a wonderful time. So that's what I will be doing next week and weekend. And just wanted to mention that because for this show, I will be taking next week off. So for this show, and likely for the watch party too, I want to do a watch party sometime before I leave. So stay tuned for that. I'm not sure what day I will be doing that. But as far as the shows next week, those will be paused. And then following the following week, I'm going to put out a little poll, and I think it'd be good to kind of mix up the time a little bit and just see when people would enjoy having this show and the watch parties and things like that. So I'll be putting polls out there to see, what times work best for everybody, so that we can get everyone on in the space. I know some people have said that they have issues with this time frame, so we might shift it a little bit. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's kind of it for the announcements today. Thanks you for listening to all that. And I think we'll just jump right into the show today. So as I mentioned, I do love to give priority to those who are here live on the call. I do have written questions that I can go over as well. And you're always welcome to send me questions. If you can't make it to this live show, you can send me questions any which way that you can reach me, whether that be through my website or through Telegram or Facebook, or comments on anywhere. And I'll do my best to save it, and we'll get to it when there's an opportune moment on the show. So yeah, let's just jump into it today. And I see Beth had raised her hand. Go ahead, sister.
Hey, Justin. I
Hey,
wasn't sure if you were talking to me.
Yeah. Did you raise your hand? Did you want to say something?
I didn't intend to raise my hand, but I might have done it accidentally. So I'll just say hello and thanks for being here. And I'll be not available the next 2 weeks either, because I'm going to a yoga training and my body's healing up nicely. And
Awesome. You broke up a little bit. Oh, there you go. You still there? Yeah, we lost a little bit of what you said at the end, but I think I heard you're going to yoga training, and body's healing, which is great, and it's always good to hear from you. So thanks for popping on, and yeah, we'll just keep rolling. So anyone else want to jump in, ask anything, share anything on your mind? Now would be a great time to do so. All right. Well, we'll go with a written question. This one was from Alicia, and she was asking about the Lord's Prayer and kind of what I see within that, and maybe the deeper meanings beside what the church tells us that's supposed to be. But what are we supposed to see here? So for those of you not familiar with the Lord's Prayer, I will just read it real quickly. So this is from the King James Version. And this is the prayer that Jesus gave to the disciples in the teachings. And it was supposed to be kind of like an all-encompassing prayer. And it is. However, if we only view it in the literal sense and in this sort of like, because the original writing was in Aramaic, and so this has been translated and interpreted, and so it starts to dilute the initial and the original meaning. So I'm just going to read the translation that we're aware of, and then I'll go deeper into it. So it goes, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen." So that's the prayer that, if anyone has been in a church setting, you're likely familiar with that prayer, and it's beautiful. It really is a beautiful prayer. But again, if we just stick with the literal interpretations of it, it doesn't hold as much power to it. This is a powerful thing to recite, and there's no accident why Yeshua gave this to be said, because there is a power in words. Spellings matter. Spells, the words we cast, they're very powerful. They're very, they can be very purposeful if purpose in them. So let's just go through it line by line and see what we see here. So the first line, "Our Father who art in heaven." So of course we could just look at that as talking about God in heaven, as in being in some external place, some off distant planet far away, and our Father is some external being that's, created us, but just wants to judge us, or whatever the sort of church's interpretations would have you believe. But what if we took that as a representation of ourselves, and our Father being this sort of aspect from that creative point, the thing that we are always connected to, that we are? And what if heaven is this state of being before we descended into this experience? What if heaven is simply home, where we come from, the initial point before we diverged into this experience? So our Father who art in heaven is sort of like reminding ourselves back to that connection point. So you start the prayer in that sense, to remind us of that. So it's the creator, that creative point, that which creates everything. And there's actually, I found this cool website that I will share. I'm just going to share screen, because it offers a whole bunch of different interpretations for the Aramaic, and I thought they did a good job with that. So let me just share this. and I'll share the link to the website as well. So for that initial line, "Our Father who art in heaven," they give these, and they give the original Aramaic as well. But here are some different interpretations that sort of lead in that sense. So, "O birther, father, mother of the cosmos, you created all that moves in light." Or, "O thou, the breathing life of all, creator of the shimmering sound that touches us." Or, "Respiration of all worlds, we hear you breathing in and out in silence." Or, "Source of sound, in the roar and the whisper, in the breeze and the whirlwind, we hear your name." "Radiant one, you shine within us, outside us, even darkness shines when we remember." "Name of names, our small identity unravels in you, you give it back as a lesson." "Wordless action, silent potency, where ears and eyes awaken, there heaven comes. O birther, father, mother of the cosmos." So again, just some different interpretations for that initial line, but leading to the same point as I was drawing upon, just sort of getting us back to that initial point, drawing our attention to the Creator, which is you. So then the second line, "Hallowed be thy name." So I'll just read these. "Focus your light within us, make it useful as the rays of beacons show the way. Help us breathe one holy breath, feeling only you. This creates a shine inside and wholeness. Help us let go, clear the space inside of busy forgetfulness, so the name comes to live. Your name, your sound can move us if we tune our hearts as instruments for its tone. Hear the one sound that created all others. In this way, the name is hallowed in silence. In peace, the name resides, a room of one's own, a holy of holies, open, giving light to all. We all look elsewhere for this light. It draws us out of ourselves, but the name always lives within. Focus your light within us. Make it useful." So I think it's fairly clear, but hallowed be thy name, referring to that in the beginning was the Word. So that initial name, but it's not really a name. It's something ultimately indescribable. However, that's what we hallow. That's what we keep holy and sacred, is the layer that we cannot put into words. So ultimately, words will always fall short. However, this is giving reverence to that initial point again in the name, using the name as like a focalizer for that. So continuing on, "Thy kingdom come," the line, "Create your reign of unity now through our fiery hearts and willing hands. Let your counsel rule our lives, clearing our intention for co-creation. Unite our I can to yours so that we walk as kings and queens with every creature. Desire with and through us the rule of universal fruitfulness onto the earth. Your rule springs into existence as our arms reach out to embrace all creation. Come into the bedroom of our hearts, prepare us for the marriage of power and beauty. From this divine union, let us birth new images for our new world of peace. Create your reign of unity now." So, thy kingdom come. Thy kingdom is the space where we are connected with all. There is no inherent separation that's forced to divide us, because we are connected. And that's the kingdom, when our domain is centered and connected. And so we invite that kingdom to come, knowing that we have fallen into the forgetfulness. We've strayed from the path, and that's okay. But we invite it back. We invite it back into the space to reunify. And then it continues, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So reading from, "Your one desire then acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. Let all wills move together in your vortex, as stars and planets, swirl through the sky. Help us Help us love beyond our ideals and sprout acts of compassion for all creatures. As we find your love in ours, let heaven and nature form a new creation. Unite the crowd within in a vision of passionate purpose. Light mates with form. And just a side note here, light mates with form. I mean, that's the zinc spark when the sperm meets the egg and that flash of light forms. That's the initial point where consciousness enters the physical space. Create in me a divine cooperation from many selves, one voice, one action. Let your heart's fervent desire unite heaven and earth through our harmony. Your one desire then acts with ours, as in all light, so in all forms. So that's their interpretations for thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So this is an invitation to allow that divine influence, which is you, it's you in your highest form, to flow through you. So the church has kind of would lead you to believe that God is some external thing and you just have to obey and sort of bend your will to something external. But that's not the case. You're curbing your will back to the highest will, which is your highest will. There is no separation from that. We forget that we are that, and so then we stray and we go into all these, loops and wild paths and dead end cul-de-sacs and things of that nature. But it's to bring back that importance of letting the highest will flow through us. That's that source light, which seeks only to spread and to grow in beautiful ways with that connection as inherent, as the foundation. So that's the will that we choose to flow through us, the highest will. To bring heaven and onto earth. So then it continues, give us this day our daily bread. And the interpretations, grant what we need each day in bread and insight, subsistence for the call of growing life. Give us the food we need to grow through each new day, through each illumination of life's needs. Let the measure of our need be earthiness, and give all things simple, verdant, passionate. Produce in us, for us, the possible, each only human step toward home lit up. Help us fulfill what lies within the circle of our lives. Each day we ask no more, no less. Animate the earth within us. We then feel the wisdom underneath, supporting all. Generate through us the bread of life. We hold only what is asked to feed the next mouth. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. So, give us this day our daily bread. It's not about a literal bread. It's manna. So manna is not the physical substance. Manna is sustenance, both body, mind, and spirit. So this is give us recognizing the abundance of creation and recognizing that we're always given exactly what we need. And so this is there to, just ask for that, and to recognize that we do receive when we are open. And we're always given exactly what we need because this is an abundant creation. So this is just a readiness for that. That's that one. And then continuing. And forgive us our trespasses, or forgive us our debts, as we forgive those who trespass against us, or we forgive our debtors. So the interpretations here, loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Forgive our hidden past, the secret shames, as we consistently forgive what others hide. Lighten our load of secret debts as we relieve others of their need to repay. Erase the inner marks of failure our failures make, just as we scrub our hearts of others' faults. Absorb our frustrated hopes and dreams as we embrace those of others with emptiness. Untangle the knots within so that we can mend our hearts' simple ties to others. Compost our inner stolen fruit as we forgive others the spoils of their trespassing. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. So forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. This is forgiveness is such a, I mean, it's essential to living. The life path requires forgiveness, because if we hold hatred, if we hold debt in our heart, then we are never free. Now, not to be confused with sort of becoming a walking, a walk mat to just walk all over. It's not that we just allow others who do careless things to just continue this path of harm, but it's all about what's in our heart. When we approach that individual, if they've done something wrong, it's always with the sake of I'm not here to punish you, but I'm here to invite you back to your higher self. I'm here to invite that light back within you to come out. And if that's not something that you want to do in this moment, then boundaries are important as well. So it's not to be confused with that. Some people often misinterpret Jesus as this pushover that just allowed everything to happen. And it's just like, oh, love and light, forgive everyone. It's like, yes, forgive everyone. But we also hold accountable as well. That the reason we've fallen into this state for so long is because we haven't had justice. Justice is important. But he gave us the best example of this when he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, in the story of him being put on the cross. Which, regardless if that really happened or not, the story shows us where that ultimate forgiveness can come from. Somebody who's murdering you, killing you, and you still ask for forgiveness because you know that all harm comes from pain, comes from suffering. So that's the compassion we can find within ourselves, even when those do harm. Again, not to just stand by and allow harm to happen, but we can have forgiveness for it because we know it comes from pain. We know it comes from ignorance. We know it comes from suffering. So that's the ways to heal. That's the ways to move through that. And so that's in others, and then within ourselves, having the same within us. We're often much harder on ourselves than anyone else, and that doesn't do us any good either. So have grace, have forgiveness. Release yourself of that weight you're carrying and that load. Let it go and come back to you. So yeah, that's what that line is saying. And then the next one, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So reading from here, don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back from our true purpose. Don't let us enter forgetfulness, the temptation of false appearances. To the fraud of inner vacillation, like a flag tossed in the wind, alert us, but break the hold of unrightness, the inner stagnation that prevents good fruit. From the evil of injustice, the green fruit and the rotten grants liberty. Deceived neither by the outer nor the inner, free us to walk your path with joy. Keep us from hoarding false wealth and from the inner shame of help not given in time. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. So all from, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. So as a part of this experience, and there's purpose behind it, there is temptation. We are here to master the animalistic drawings of the body and the mind, both of which can lead us into these tempting ways if we're just pursuing sensations and physical pleasures, or if we're pursuing the mental wanderings of learning how to gain power and subjugate and control. And all of these things are temptations that take us away from that inherent connection. And not completely, there's nothing wrong with enjoying and really celebrating the body and what it has to offer, or allowing the mind to really intellectualize. And I mean, it's a gift. Both of them are such gifts, but neither of them should run the show. They're to pick up. So if the bodily pleasures are pulling me away, leading me to justify action, or just saying, fuck it, I don't care about anybody else, I'm just going to do what feels good, well, then we're straying away from that connection point. We are losing touch with our Father who art in heaven, that initial creative point, that light, source light. And just the same, if we are justifying actions to take advantage of others for whatever reason, then we are straying away from that connection again. So having that connection as foundation, asking this creative source light to help us to remind ourselves to stay connected and deliver us from evil, which is the worst form of what these temptations can lead us to. But they always do. If we let them run, if we just keep going, then it always brings us to evil. That's the slippery slope. That's what we have to be conscious of and step back into consciousness, because the unconscious will lead us to that. And then ending, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And so the interpretations here: from you is born all ruling will, the power and life to do, the song that beautifies all, from age to age it renews. To you belongs each fertile function, ideals, energy, glorious harmony during every cosmic cycle. Out of you, the queen and kingship, ruling principles, the I can of the cosmos. Out of you, the vital force producing and sustaining all life, every virtue. Out of you, the astonishing fire, the birthing glory, returning light and sound to the cosmos. Again and again, from each universal gathering of creatures, nations, planets, time, and space to the next. Truly, power to these statements. May they be the ground from which all my actions grow, sealed in trust and faith. So they say it pretty well. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. So that's where the true kingdom, the true power, and the true glory exist. Everything else is an illusion. It's pulling us away from that. And there's, again, purpose for that. This creates the sine wave, or the cyclical nature, the tug and the pull and push of creation, which allows this expansive experience to continue expanding. But in order to harmonize, we come back to that remembrance, because that is where the power and the glory truly lie. So that's an invitation to come back to that. So yeah, that's that sort of site's interpretation and my little additions to it. I hope you found that helpful. So yeah, I will just go ahead and end that there as a great question. Good thing to go over, and it's a wonderful prayer to remember. But try and remember the higher meanings behind it when you do recite that, and bring really that power and influence back into this space with the words uttered. So I'll just end there, and if anyone else wants to jump in, now would be a great time. All right, let's go to another written question here. So this one was from, I'm going to see if maybe Rowan hops on later. He asked a question earlier, so we'll skip that one for now. This one is from Izzy, and she asked, how many egos can a person have? She says, I guess I'm speaking about altered egos. How can you tell them apart? So there's a reason why in lore and descriptions, either the devil or the deceiver is used and shown to have many faces, many names, if anyone's watched the new Lord of the Rings of Power series, Sauron in there often talks about, oh, I have been called many things, because he is Satan. He is that deceiver. And that's ultimately what our ego can become. And I don't say that to demonize the ego, because the ego isn't, it's a part of this experience, and it's a necessary part of this experience. But what the ego can turn into, and when we let the ego run the show, because it's always trying to take hold, it's always trying to dominate the experience. It's always wanting to pursue its selfish desires to whatever end, and there is no end. It's a bottomless pit. And so in order to do that, because it's essentially been tasked to deceive God, how do you trick God into it not being God anymore? Well, God gave us this amazing and terrifying little aspect of this experience, that sole purpose. Well, not sole purpose. It has many, many functions, but one of the functions is to consistently act as a training mechanism for us, a sparring partner. And if we let it, it will beat the shit out of us, just to put it very simply. It will trick us, and then it will take over, and then it will continue causing mayhem and havoc until we right ourselves, get up, and take ownership again. And that has purpose, because it's there as a somewhat of a gate. Well, it's a gatekeeper for higher spiritual power. In every level, if you want to imagine it that way, our ego is manifest in a different way. So the question about, like, do we have many egos? Is like, no, there's only one, but it will show up in an infinite number of ways, which is important to remember, because, and as I've said before, those who claim to not have an ego, or that they've addressed it and it's no longer a problem, turn and run the other direction, away from people who claim these things, because that means their ego has deceived them so greatly that they believe they don't even have one any longer, which means the ego is firmly in control, and they're susceptible to do anything, any selfish desire, no matter how deeply that ego has masked itself, because that's what it does, right? And that's how it can deceive us, is it puts on all these disguises, and it tries to act like you and your voice, and but we are not the voice, we are not the thoughts. The ego will love to try and convince you of that. So if we can remember that it has 1,000 faces, and it can show up in any number of ways, not to live in fear, but just in a state of continual readiness. Have your warrior ready, poised and ready, which is very important. It's not entirely clear how we fell into this experience, and how we fell from grace, how we fell from the last height of who we were, but we know there was certainly a height of civilization at some point, because we are definitely not in it with all of these ancient structures and in ways that are far more advanced than we are today. So wherever we came from, we were much more advanced. So what happened? How did we fall? Somehow, some way, the ego came and crept back in and started using that spiritual power in ways to maybe to dominate and control. I mean, that certainly evolved out of it. So I don't know how it churned and how we got here, but it all stems from that same importance of making sure that we are doing that internal work to not let the ego take over. Don't let the ego convince you that it's you and take over. And again, I'm not saying the ego is some evil thing. It's not evil. It has the potential to become evil, yes, but it is not evil on its own. its higher purpose, when we have it in its place, is to give us a character to embody, give us a role to play. And that play can be fluid. That role can be fluid, and we can shift and dance with it. And it can just be a space of enjoyment. It's like the connection point to this physical realm. The ego is like it gives us that potential. So there's very much purpose in it, and we wouldn't exist in this sort of simulated, externalized experience should we not have it. But the potential with it is very deadly, if you will. It's very dangerous. It's playing with fire. So we have to learn to master the fire and not let it take over. So yeah, I'll just end out there. The ego is just one, but it will convince you that it's different things. And I guess that reminds me of, like, there's like MK Ultra, which is altered identity induced through trauma. So externally, one can attempt to split someone's persona or their ego into many different ways through trauma and other mind control techniques, and that's very possible as well. So it is something to note in that, but it doesn't mean that there's multiple egos. It's just the ego being split, or seemingly split. So yeah, I will just leave that one there and pass it off and see if anyone else wants to jump in. All right. Well, let's go with another question. So I'm just going to pull up the conversation. Rowan messaged me the other day and was asking about evidence of like a time where the stars had fallen. So if you go back into old records, there seemed to be a point where the stars fall. And I don't have a lot to add specifically to that. I have heard that before, and it's like, when we start looking at start digging through things that have existed and ancient records, it gets really muddy really quickly. It's been told to us that prior to 1871, we don't know shit. Like we've pieced some things together. There's obviously historical evidence of things that have happened, but as far as the timeline goes and the way that these characters tend to show up and what actually happened during these times and what sort of cataclysms wiped out certain entire populations or large portions of it, how did that evolve and what came from that, it gets really muddy really quickly. So as far as this evidence of the stars falling, that could have been some form of cataclysm. And whether it was literal, like the stars fell out of the firmament, I don't know. Or it could have been due to some other phenomenon, like a volcano erupting or some crazy event. I don't know. But all to say is that as we sort of piece these things back together again, our reliance on written records will have some importance, but really it comes back to us tapping into the Akashic records or the history of consciousness, which we all have access to. It's just quite difficult to reach. We've forgotten how to access this. So I see historians in the future being much more attuned into accessing these records. And of course, it'll be anytime anyone is doing that, there's always room for misinterpretation. There's always room for like people who claim to channel and things of that nature. I'm not saying channeling is wrong by any means. It can be a very pure access point to the divine. However, going through the lens and with the workings of the ego, which is always trying to deceive, what comes out of those interpretations can be quite off from what the divine records showed. So it's important to remember that. And the cleaner we become, both body, mind, and soul, the less likely we are going to be to fall into misinterpretations when we access these things. So yeah, it'll be exciting to sort of piece these things together. And after we realize just how little we know and how much our history has been lied to us about, it'll be kind of a fun and daunting process to rediscover and put them back together and map out how these different events formed and what came from them and what we did after these floods and certain cataclysms, and who took advantage of those situations, and how did we devolve into this state that we find ourselves. And through that, we'll get to continue harmonizing with creation. Because I don't mean to scare anybody with the talk of cataclysms. I've mentioned it before, but it's this earth has a natural sort of cleansing mode, if you will. It has a natural culling built into it, which culling is a term used for thinning the herd for those who, using in that sort of practice, which I don't condone at all. But the term culling actually happens on this earth as well when we don't harmonize with the earth. So if there's so much discordant energy where we are, because our emotions and everything is tied into the natural phenomenon, if we are not doing our due diligence to harmonize with the earth, then it creates a potential energy of discord. And that potential energy continues to build. And if it doesn't have anywhere to release, then it has to release eventually, and the release becomes more and more cataclysmic, eventually getting to the point where it have some big earth-shattering event, which the earth always recovers from, and we do as well, but not without much disaster and much wiping of large portions, if not the entire population. So that can happen, but it's nothing to fear, because it just means that we need to get our shit together and learn to balance our emotions, learn to balance our relationship with the earth. And even if it does happen, it's not the end, because there is no end. It's simply just an opportunity to try again, just like death, just like a one lifetime death. It's nothing wrong. It's not a punishment. It's just simply an opportunity to try again and see if we can get it right or more right this next time. So that happens on a macro scale as well, with events like that being potential to happen. And yeah, it's just an invitation for us to do better. So yeah, I'll just leave that one there and pass it off and see if anyone else wants to jump in. Alrighty. Well, Darth, I don't know if you're ready yet. I don't have any more questions to go through today. Are you ready, or do you want to hold that off until another show?
Well, let's do it. So, because it kind of falls in line with the conversations that we've been having now, because we were talking about hallowed be thy name. Okay, well, first of all, let's go back and what are we talking about? So last night, Justin and I were having a conversation about names and ego. And I was recounting a story of when I was younger. And, well, all right, I'm just going to be honest. When I was very young, I was kind of a douchebag and a jerk. So let's just be honest about that. And so there was this girl, and I remember her name now. Her name was Cynthia. I couldn't remember it last night. It took a night to remember her name. So there goes that toward me being a douchebag when I was younger. But so her name was Cynthia, and Cynthia was a very proper young lady. And I'm not criticizing her in any way, shape, or form. However, in my as a young man, I guess I was a little bit insecure I just kind of perceived her as being very, very arrogant, and we had some sort of interaction, and I guess it upset my ego. And she would just walk by as though she was just the picture of perfection, and how dare I even look in her direction and breathe her air and be in the same building as her. So I started. So I did it was a very dirty, underhanded, manipulative, scheming little thing that I did. I said, well, Cynthia, clearly, as long as she's in that. I said, well, I'm trying to remember like the thought process of what I was thinking. I was probably like, I don't know, I was probably like 16 or 17 and just all hopped up on hormones and teenage angst. But I just, for some reason, I decided I just kind of set my sights on this girl, Cynthia. And I said, well, I could never go anywhere near Cynthia because the identity of Cynthia was just too holier than thou, just too angelic for a street rat such as myself. So I said, well, if I can never get near Cynthia, then I'll have to change her name into something that I could approach. So I started calling her every time she would just like be so higher than thou. I'd be like, whatever, sinful Cindy. And oh, she got so mad. And the funny thing is she wasn't so mad about being called Cindy. She was mad that I was calling her sinful. But I was attaching the name. I was fully intending to let go of the sinful part of the name, because it would give me something of, it would give me a token of compromise. But I kept calling her Sinful Cindy for quite a while, every time, and she'd be like, I'm not sinful. Like, she was so mad about being imputed sinful, and I'd be like, well, if you're not sinful, why are you so prideful? You're not better than me, and then eventually it's just, the pressure was just, for a couple of teenagers, it was pretty intense. And then like at some point she started crying. And I'm like, okay, fine, Cindy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Cindy, that I called you sinful. And she accepted my apology. She should have how could she possibly know? Because I had read books on the occult use of names. So I knew what I was doing. I was doing it on purpose. So anyway, I apologize for calling her Sinful Cindy, but I kept calling her Cindy. But now Cindy is attached to the concept of sinful. So I started making sure that I gave her lots of compliments. Cindy is so much fun. Cindy's just like us. And I just kept kind of like giving all this validation about being Cindy. And she just kind of like accepted it. And the thing is that this young woman would do things as Cindy that she would never do as Cynthia. Cynthia was a proper, right, young lady. Cindy was a lot more fun. and perhaps, so eventually I started feeling really guilty, and this poor girl was just about going to go all the way. And then I broke the spell by calling her Cynthia again. And I think she looked in my eyes and I flinched. I mean, I was still a kid. I mean, I would have not known what to do with her anyway. And so I broke the spell, and she went back to being Cynthia. And then at that point, she really was, up in the clouds and wouldn't look twice in my direction. But that's the power. That's the power of names. So there's an ancient folklore practice, and it's called actually, here let's look at some scriptures. So this is from the Tao Te Ching. It says, when you have names and forms, know that they are provisional. When you have institutions, know where their functions should end. Knowing when to stop, you could avoid any danger. And wow, we could really use this in modern Western culture, because we use names in an absolute sense. The legal system really controls the use of our names. And then they create these institutions, they conjure these entities, they give them names, and then they never let them end. And these institutions just continue on and on. So that's the Tao Te Ching. Here's from another scripture from the Tao Te Ching. It says, people hate to be orphans, widowers, and starvelings. So there's 3 names. Yet kings and princes take these names as their titles. Therefore, sometimes you gain by losing, sometimes you lose by gaining. So even a wealthy person might choose to take a name that might seem to be disadvantaged, but only because it's giving them advantage. Names are an exceedingly powerful thing. Naming is one of the most powerful magics that anyone can possibly use. And look at how Trump has used names all the way back from 2016. He would use names. Crooked Hillary, right? Crooked Joe. And these names exerted force. There's all kinds of psychological documentation on the effect that names has on a person's ego. And so how many egos can a person have? It really goes to however many names that they're willing to hold in their mind. So here's Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 1. It states that a good name is to be chosen over great riches, and loving favor over silver and gold. So a name exerts physical force on the construct. Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 7 mentions that the name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked causes things to rot. And then here's John chapter 16 and verse 24. This is Jesus Christ speaking. It says, until now, you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. So that's the power of the name of Christ. Here is this is a scripture from the Bhagavad Gita. It says, what is changing must always be unreal. What is constant or permanent must always be real. The Atman, or eternal, all-pervading self, never exists. It is the only reality. The phenomenal world of names and forms is ever-changing. Names and forms are subject to decay and death. Hence, they're unreal or impermanent. And yet, because they're, even though they're unreal, they still exert force. Excuse me. So here's some a tale. Excuse me. Okay, here's a tale of Rumpelstiltskin. And in the tale of Rumpelstiltskin, you have this demon that comes and demands her child. And in order to free herself from this demon that's demanding her child, the little girl had to learn his name. And once she learned his name, she gained power over him and was able to protect her child. So there are tons of ancient myths about the powers of names. So, in occult practices, names are often considered to hold significant power, with the belief that knowing someone's true name grants a degree of control over them, allowing for magical influence through the use of that name in rituals or spells. And this concept is often referred to as the law of names, where a person's true name can be used to manipulate their energy or destiny. So how exactly does this work? It's not that everyone has a secret name that no one else knows. It's, can you make them be true to that name? Can you make them associate themselves with that name? So at that time, then the name would become their true name, because then the name becomes a prison that they're contained in, that they would participate in their own enslavement. The legal system uses this concept. So when we go into a court, one of the first things that they want to do is they want to associate us with a name. And then once we are contained by the legal name, then they can exert power over us. But if we stand our ground and say, well, I have no name, I am not this thing. People sometimes call me that, but I am not that. And if we reject the legal straw man, then it kind of causes a hijink in their system. Let me see here. So that's just what I could scrape up pretty quick. And in ancient culture, there was something called the doctrine of names, and that's according to the Confucian system. So people would have a name, but the name was always associated with the task that they were doing. So they might be called father, ruler, subject, smith, carpenter, warrior. And one of the things that the Cabal has taken from us is that many people don't know the meaning of their own name, and people are not allowed to choose their own name. So originally, in the very ancient culture that is beyond written documentation, people actually, because people were speaking in the language of angels, so they weren't speaking primarily with vocal expression, but everyone was just speaking telekinetically, empathetically. And so because that was the nature of communication, everyone just knew what everyone else meant. And when mankind existed without the spoken word, and when mankind existed without spoken names, we were much more collective in nature, far less individuality. And because of that, how could anyone hurt anyone else? Because if we're all just the same person, and none of us are differentiated by names, then I am you and you are me, and what's good for me is good for you, and what's good for you is good for me, and how could I possibly withhold anything from you or hurt you? And so mankind was much more collective. But the ego, the dialectic, which is what divides things, continued its work. And so people became far more individualistic. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it did happen. And as people became more individualistic, we lost our spiritual tongue, and we were restricted to intellectual language and physical speech. and then we were differentiated. And then because we could no longer hear each other's thoughts, and we could only hear what people physically said, then people needed names. And yet, even then, our names were not meaningless. Our names had meaning, but they were very utilitarian in nature, and so they were very transitory. So while you were a father, your name would be father, right? But once you were no longer a father, or the job was done, like while you had to, if you had to fight, you would change your name to unstoppable warrior, right? Or if you were a healer, you might change your name to incredible healer. But once you were done healing, you would let that name go, and now you would just be a man, right? And however, if you have all of these tools in your toolbox and you can be all of these things, well, that makes tyranny very difficult, because tyranny is dependent upon us not having tools. The tyranny is dependent upon us not being capable. And so one of the things that tyranny did is they restricted our ability to have many names. And instead, we could only have one name. And the name would have to be one that, your parents could choose it, but then that would be your name for the rest of your life. And you'd have to go through legal expense to change your name. And then the culture was even made worse, or then people even forgot the meanings of their name. So that's one of the things that I like to do, is when I meet someone, I'm like, oh, what does your name mean? And the majority of the NPCs that I meet have no idea of what their name is. So that's one of the beautiful things that I really enjoy about this, the Great Awakening, or the Great Noticing, is that people are breaking away from their government names, and they're breaking away from their matrix names and the institutionalization of their names, and they're giving themselves new names. And that's really taking our power back. So there might be more research I can find in my library, and I'll have to maybe bring that out on another show. But I was thinking about this over the night, and then this is just what I could put together quickly. The other thing that I wanted to say on a different topic is I have been receiving some donations on a fairly regular basis, and they always come just in time. And I just really wanted to express gratitude for the sacrifices that everyone's making. This Saturday, I was going to need to buy more chicken feed, animal feed, and hay. And I was kind of like counting the pennies, and okay, I can make this happen. And then a couple of donations rolled in, and it's a big relief that I'll be able to take care of these animals in the house. And I just really want to say thank you to everyone who did that. And I really appreciate it, and it'll be put to good use. So I guess for the moment, my name is Gratitude, and thank you.
Thanks, brother. Really appreciate you sharing all of that. And yeah, I would just want to mention, it is something to help out Darth and Joanna with all the work that they do, and it does help to give more freedom to put together, even just brief presentations like we just got. So if you do find yourself with the ability to help out any which way, you can find their all their donation links on the House Jedediah chat, and then there's a link to donate to Christic Jedi. So I'm just going to share that real quickly here so you can see it. So if you see here, I'm on the House Jedediah chat. That is House Jedediah chat, at House Jedediah chat, all one word. So HouseJedidiahChat, House Jedediah chat. And that's the library that Darth has put together, and it's an amazing resource. And in that, there's folders, and one of them is to donate to Christic Jedi. So you can find their the Gifts and Go, PayPal, and Venmo links in that space. So any which way that you can help out is very much appreciated. And yeah, really great stuff on. Oh, go ahead, brother.
I'm sorry. One last thing that I wanted to mention about the power of names. So mostly I've been focusing on the use of names on to ourselves, right? But there's or the use of names on people. Like you might name someone doctor or police or a politician or judge, right? And so then someone tells you, well, my name is Judge, or I am a judge. And then that evokes a psychological response. But in the occult, there are both spiritual forces that are given names, and these are both positive and negative spiritual forces. So the positive spiritual forces we would call angels, and the negative spiritual forces we would call demons. And each spiritual force has a name, and then it has a list of attributes associated with that name. And in the ancient cultures, with someone who has a great deal of spiritual self-control, they could invoke the names of these spiritual forces, angels and demons, and then utilize them and cause a physical reaction in the physical construct. So this is like one of the things they say with like ancient Solomon, that he was able to invoke the names of both angels and demons and use them in the construction of cities and walls and temples, and use them in both construction and warfare. And then in the ancient European culture, they were able to invoke the names of warrior demons, okay, in order to infuse yourself with a rampaging berserker rage. So, and that would have a physical effect on the construct around you. So names of both angels and demons also exert physical force, and the Catholic faith still uses that. A lot of Christians still use that. They'll invoke the name of Jesus Christ, or the name of Michael the Archangel, or the name of what they perceive to be God, Yahweh or Jehovah, and they'll use that name to control their organization, or to do things like spontaneous healing or that sort of thing.
Yeah, great stuff, and great reminder there with that. Yeah, it's like the name. I mean, we utter a sound, and that sound is a frequency. And so that specific way that frequency is formed with our mouth, that's the frequency that kind of holds that pattern. And so if we're pouring our collective consciousness into that name and what it represents, even if that name doesn't align with, like, say there was a like Jesus Christ, Jesus wasn't his real name, but because that name has been so solidified in people's consciousness, and that name holds a power because we've been pouring our conscious energy into that vibration, into that frequency. And so this is how these names can be evoked and used with that power, because you're wielding that same frequency and what it represents in whatever way. So yeah, it's important to note that. Really great stuff on names in general. I love how Josh X has brought this forward on just taking a look at the word name and breaking it up into two syllables, two words. Name is na-me, N-A-M-E, is na-me. It's not me. So I like to remember that consistently, especially if somebody says they like forgot my name or whatever. Like, I don't ever get upset about that, because I don't really want to identify with the name. Like, the name can be useful. It's helpful for communication and being specific about whatever. But when we identify with that as if that is me, then that's where it causes problems. And that's where that name and that identity can be used as power against us, which is, as Darth beautifully described, is the whole legalese, maritime admiralty law, where we're bonded as chattel, cattle, or property of the state, and our name is our corporation name that we identify with, and then that corporation can be used and abused any which way, seemingly without, I mean, it's not without consequence, but it's with less consequence for them to use that, because we are, whether we realize it or not, we're buying into that. We're saying, oh, I'm gonna be this role in this play, and in this play, this character is going to be used and abused, but that's okay in their eyes to some extent, because we are willingly participating in a simulated fake event, a fake play. And so just as you don't hold the villain in a play accountable for their actions because you know it's a story, it's simulated, it's not real, that's what they're trying to pull off in this fake legalese system, by getting us to identify with a character that then they can write the script for the play and have it act and go in the ways that they want to. So the solution to that, and that's what Christ and all Christed beings, all ascended masters or descended masters, however you want to phrase it, taught, was to step back into sovereignty, which a big part of that is letting go of attachment or identification. So the name represents it can represent a firm attachment or identification to something, to this false entity. So if we can have more room within that, to where it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with names, but I don't need to identify with it, then all of a sudden I can't be controlled, because I'm not concerned about the identity or how that name or my character's appearance or whatever, how that looks, or even the effects on my physical body, or the other layers that we are using, the tools that we have at our disposal. But if I'm not identifying with any of them, then no matter what's done to the tools, whether it be the name or the body or whatever, has no effect on me, because I am not those things. And that's true freedom. That's true freedom. So yeah, I think it's a great reminder to just sort of examine, like, how are we identifying with the name or the character? How much power am I giving to my appearance, or to whatever the case may be, whatever things people do to either tarnish the name or use the name in those kind of ways. Because then we aren't susceptible, when we let that go, we aren't susceptible to these mind control games that the names can imply. Just like Darth with this young woman, we're not susceptible to being called any which way. It's like, well, you can call me whatever you want. I'm none of those things. So it just takes away that power and that influence, and we step further into freedom. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that every show, you give a warning. Hey, there's people out there using my name, and then you kind of give a little advice on how they can make sure whether it's you or not, because there are scammers out there that know that by invoking your name, they can get money out of people. So the names have exert a tremendous amount of force on the construct. So there are 7 names of God, or 7 names of the force. And the 7 names are: I am, I will, I do, I feel, I speak, I see, and I know. So it's actually an equation. So because I am, I have will. Because I have will, I do. Because I do, I feel. Because I feel, I speak. Because I speak, I see. Because I see, I know. I know what I see. I see what I speak what I feel what I do what I will what I am. So then that kind of ties all the names together. The interesting part is the connection between I speak, and then I see what I speak. So what is it that we're speaking? We're speaking names, and then we're speaking name modifiers or name descriptors. So you might say that I'm healthy. Okay. Or I'm very healthy, or I'm sick. See, these are descriptors, or I'm really sick. So when we're utilizing our speech, okay, so we're speaking names and we're speaking descriptors or names or modifiers of names. We want to be conscious of what it is that we're saying, because the scriptures clearly say that it is impossible for God to lie. So what does it mean that it's impossible for God to lie? Well, who's God? God is our speech, because our speech creates. And why is it impossible for God to lie? Because what it is that we speak, it's going to happen. Now, a lot of times we speak conflicting words. Okay. And so then our words cancel each other out. But if we speak just one thing, okay, and you hold that intent for 17 seconds and you're speaking that one thing, then your words, which is God, is not going to lie. It's going to happen sooner or later. And so then we want to be deliberate in the way that we use our names. So like, we don't want to say we're sick. We want to say we're detoxing, and I'm detoxing, and I'm appreciative that I'm detoxing, because it means I'm letting go of these bad things, and I'll be happy when it's over. Right. Or however it is that we're going to use it. Especially with like our children or people we really love or care about. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, great stuff, and great reminder with the seven names of God, and those act as that seven rung chakra ladder within us. And so we are, it's a daisy chain of coming back to the great I am, which is you. But then through the seven, we get to immerse ourselves into the experience and have a much more vibrant time interacting with the experience. But hopefully, when we do at times, but hopefully to not forget the fact that we are connected, and that chain always brings us back. So we have that knowing within, and it's not tied to any name or identity or whatever. It's truly beyond all of that, is the observer of this whole experience and interacting with it. And that's God. That's you. So yeah, that's great stuff. And I saw that that Beth, you raised your hand. Did you want to add to that or ask anything?
Hey, Justin. Yeah, thank you. I was loving this conversation. I'm gonna turn my speaker on. I know that gives feedback. The whole conversation of the ego kind of got my mind going about shadow work, and I was just fascinated to learn a lot of things about that. But it all kind of goes in together. But when I was discovering all this, like not just duality, but even like fragmentation that's described, like with people, for instance, who have a lot of childhood trauma and they actually have diagnosis, psychological, like split personality type things, kind of fascinated me. And when I was learning about that, it was interesting, because in my own shadow work, it almost seemed like there was like a different version of me that I had created during different stages of my life to be able to equip myself for what I was, experiencing. So that was really interesting in the beginning. So that's what was coming to me. And then all that Darth had to share, I just loved. And then I was really happy that he did bring it back around, and not just talking about like the names that were given. The name that I was given means house of God, and I love that. But yeah, speaking things over each other, but also names such as labels. And I was glad that he touched on that part with regards to like judges or different titles that we give a certain amount of respect to or whatever. It brought me to thinking about 12-step and how it's expected that you say your name and I am an addict or I am an alcoholic, and how that whole realization happened for me and brought me kind of away from those fellowships. So, and then that led me to think of like, I am a diabetic. I am, you know, things that people say identifying with disease. And so, yeah, I think Darth kind of came back and hit on all that stuff pretty much. But it was just a really good conversation and I appreciate it. So happy to be here, and I'll keep listening. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. I really appreciate that. And yes, just drawing on the sort of unfortunate layer, whether intentionally added or not, of the sort of AA programs and how they have that continual identification spell that you have to cast in order to be accepted to speak. And so you have this wonderful community of people getting to speak openly and share and go through their struggles and challenges and find solace in that. But its foundation is built on this initial identification of I am an addict or I'm an alcoholic. And it's like, you are none of those things. We can find ourselves going through periods of addiction and struggle and all of that. But I am not that, you know, and so it's just to rewriting that story so that I'm not identifying with the same story. But if I'm repeating that spell every single time, then it makes it very challenging to break free from that. So it's a great point to bring up. And and then also just looking at all. Oh, go ahead, Darth. Go ahead.
The other idea that comes to mind is the tyrants, the Sith, the sick ones. They will use names to conceal their presence. So we're surrounded by all of these legal entities, county, state, federal, and then we have all of these three-letter agencies, FBI, CIA, NSA, DOD, and because these entities are given these names, then the people, they think that they're separate people. They think that it's different groups, but they're not different groups. I mean, they might have their organizational structures and they might fight amongst themselves, from time to time, but they're really just the same group of people, so there's a group of people on this world that are tyrants, and by changing their names, then they make it harder for them to track them. So for like us, the people, a lot of times when we get married, we'll take the name of the father, but they take the name of the mother so that they conceal their lineage, or they'll call themselves by another organization so that you don't know, oh, that's who we're talking about. But when you start stripping down and tracing the names, you realize that there's a singular group of people that are causing 99% of the problems on this world. And they're using the power of names to hide behind.
Yeah, great point. And that's where the analogy of the Hydra comes in, this multi-headed beast that's all stemming from the same body. And that's what these Satanists love to do, is they love to shapeshift their identity through names and move about and all sorts of things. So it's not that they're literal shapeshifter. They're not lizard people morphing in front of us, but they're cowards who, instead of facing and atoning for what they've done, continue to hide and run and cause more problems. And that's been consistent. Anyone who allows that shadow self, the inverted ego, to take over, then every ounce of light is a threat, because it's exposure and prevents from the heinous deeds to continue. So a name acts as a smokescreen to hide behind these identifications, these corporations, governments, whatever, institutions they're all just names to hide behind. So if you have names to hide behind, your own name to hide behind, you have legalese to hide behind, that's a lot of layers of obscurity to commit the worst. And they do. But when we peel it all back, we realize it's just the same source of fear, the same source of, allowing the separation spell to take hold in a way that causes one to do harm to others. It's the same sickness that can invade all of us. And once we expose it and see it, then we can work to heal it and come back to harmony within it. And, I'm sure we will move more gracefully into a space to where we don't need language and spoken word nearly as much. But I do feel like we will still choose to use it at times just for the beautiful expression that we've been able to find from it. So there's always beauty that comes from it. Goodness is always within everything. So language has allowed us to poetically express and to play these plays, have these roles and movies and shows and things where we act out these stories. And that's all essential to have. We need to have names and language and all of that in order to do that. And we enjoy that, but just don't get carried away with it. Don't let it take over and don't let it hide. Yeah, that darkness, we've got to address it within ourselves and not let the obscurity take over. So yeah, great stuff there. And I will just end it there and see if anybody else wants to jump in.
Hey, it's Lila. Hi, everyone. I just
Hey,
wanted to
Lila.
add a little footnote, which would be that, yes, the power of I am, but then also the power of my. So I see this a lot. I'm helping somebody actively that's working with a cancer diagnosis, and she keeps calling it my cancer. And the power of owning something is so important. So the power of the I am ... being very mindful around that, but then also the power of the my. So the cancer versus my cancer, and really any ailment, my whatever it is, one I hear a lot with my clients is my bad knee, my bad hip, my whatever it is. And it's like, what? you're spell casting that about that, and you're making it something that is yours when it could be, something fleeting that's moving through your field. So just wanted to throw that in too.
It's such a great point. Thank you for that. Yeah, anytime that we are possessing something, it's a form of identification, and it's adding strength to that experience, because this creation is it's pretty brutal in a lot of ways, in that it gives us exactly what we energetically ask for. And that doesn't have anything to do with, well, it can have something to do with the spoken word, but it's about the energy that you're embodying. So if you're speaking about these things in that way and identifying with them, claiming them, owning them, then you're sending out the signals to the universe that, like, hey, you need more of that because you want that. It gives us exactly what we want. So be mindful of the words, be mindful of the thoughts and what we're possessing and identifying with, because it's adding to our experience, and we have full power to change that at any point. And I'm not saying that it will magically vanish right away when we start to shift. And it could, it can happen, but more likely is it just starts to energetically leave that openness for the divine to bring us the blissful experience, which is always there waiting for us to invite in. We just have to reach out and ask and embody that, live it, be it. So yeah, great point there, Lila. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I recently had some stitches, and the practitioner kept calling them she kept saying your stitches. This is how you care for your stitches. And I got to be very mindful about how I was hearing that, and then how I was responding back, the stitches. And also one thing that I noticed was how because I don't deal with that world very often at this point, how on automatic the practitioners were around. Even, for instance, they prescribed a antibiotic for the first 2 days, and I was like, do I really need to take this antibiotic? Like, can I do other things? And she was so I could just feel, I saw and could feel her eyes and her heart kind of just closed down to me at that point when I made that, when I asked her that. And I really, it was a beautiful opportunity for me to really hold steady in the face of somebody saying, well, science has not proven that there's any other options. And I'm thinking, really, I'm really going to put some antibiotics into my gut to, deal with these stitches that aren't even mine. They just happen to be in my back briefly. And I didn't take the antibiotic, and they are healing up and have healed up just fine. And so this, it really does give us an opportunity to feel more empowered within ourselves and check in with ourselves and do the things that we can do. I use some Sangre de Drago and some other things that I know are antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, and took some things internally that are, a mild natural antibiotic, and it was fine. They're fine. And I didn't have to affect my bowel negatively, etc., by taking something internally that is an antibiotic. And the medical industry is so hoodwinked around all of this, and has lost all of these old all of this old wisdom, because they're not a product of the wise society. They're really a product of, as we know, this corporate BS machine introduced by the Rockefellers. So it really does get to be up to us to make the change that we want to see. And yeah, it's just such a celebration for us to move away from that and be able to use allopathic medicine in ways where it is helpful, but then also to not fall into this ways of being hoodwinked around, okay, you're going to own those stitches. Those stitches become part of you. Those, and now we're going to pile a antibiotic on top of that, and now you're going to deal with a upset weird bowel for months because you've taken some antibiotic, right? It's just it can be a system that just goes quickly downhill within our own internal system if we buy into all of it. So just wanted to share that, and let it be the cancer, let it be the stitches, let it be the challenged ankle or the challenged knee, or things that need a little bit more TLC, versus this way that we hate on these parts of our body and label them as dysfunctional and bad. the bad one. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lila. Great point. And yes, I appreciate that that prompting very much. So thank you for that. I'll go ahead, Darth.
I was thinking of how they changed the name of our original natural medicine. They changed the name to alternative medicine. It's not the alternative. It's the original. It's the real medicine. and yet they call it the alternative medicine. No, the oil petrochemicals, that's the alternative. That's the poison. And they're constantly doing this. They're reframing names of concepts like conspiracy theorists, right? So our president they try to assassinate our president, and then anyone who goes against the official narrative, they call them a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, but the people, the 80% that are operating with a very low consciousness, they're very susceptible to these names. And this is why we should stand in our power and take control of our names and take control of the names of the ideas around us, and whoever it is that is the most the most intolerant group is the one that is going to win. And so we should have zero tolerance for them using derogatory names toward us, or using insulting names toward things that are important. And that's why the scriptures say that hallowed be thy name. We should make sure that our names are sacred and don't let anyone impugn our names.
Yes, very well said. Thank you for that. I saw Tracy. Raise your hand. Go ahead.
Well, hello, everyone. Really great points made here. I'm going to sort of touch on sort of what Lila was saying in a similar way. Like a couple of years ago, we'd had these discussions. I hearing it from you guys way back then, this same topic of not naming your issue that way, and spell casting that way. So I really had to check myself, because it was constant, because I had so many issues. So I felt that I was constantly spell casting. So anyway, so I came in the chat one day, and I'd said, actually, I think it was right when Reno was being introduced into JC Family, and he, of course, his channel is called Healing is a Feeling. Well, I chose, before I knew him, before I knew that channel name, to address I use my, because that's what I thought of. That's how I'm explaining it anyways. But it's interesting when you use the or the my. So anyway, so I started to say out loud, and getting in getting in that, to stop the spellcasting, but it called myself it was my healing feelings. So I felt when I was doing it, and over a short period of time, I could feel the shift that was happening within my consciousness and my awareness, and and how I was being present. So that was interesting, because this was all what I was starting to learn as well about shadow work and all that kind of stuff, and really, going inside, and really, learning what inner work is, and actually feeling the shifts as I was engaging with different parts of, different styles of, and different aspects of shadow work and inner work and stuff like that. So so I started to use that, and still do, but I still have to catch myself. I can slip back into the, oh, my fucking back, or oh, my fucking this. Anyway, so I have to still, I do prefer that, like my healing feelings. So I'm just wondering if I should be saying maybe the healing feelings. Like, I don't think, because what I'm thinking, when I'm consciously saying it, and in my mind is that I'm grateful. Like I'm in my mind, and I'm saying, like, not necessarily a mantra, but this is good. Like I'm healing this. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm feeling this. I'm grateful to be aware of this. This means that I'm actually, I'm alive. I'm breathing. I'm grateful in that gratitude mode. But then also just that it's part of healing. When you're feeling it, for whatever reason, it's just another stage of healing. Because I kind of go, I have, issues, which I've explained here quite a few times, of being quite clumsy and little injuries all the time, tripping and falling down, all this kind of stuff, bumping something, banging something, and, bruising something. So, not breaking things, which is good. It's like, it's not serious, but it is constant. So anyway, so it is something like it's almost, I have to have like this is a daily thing that I've got to keep on, but it was helpful. I could feel the shift when I was saying from, the complaint of, and then signaling out the body part, and then spell casting on it. And so anyway, just want to share that. So that's something I still do is, all my healing feelings. And, and also it brings me into a lighter spirit. Like I can feel myself getting into a lighter spirit when I'm saying it, as opposed to focusing on the pain. Because when the pain is really intense, it's hard not to focus on. It's impossible to ignore, especially when it's multiple areas going off at once. So anyway, so I just want to share that. So thanks guys, love you.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, it's great to just examine all the times that where we've been casting these spells and just rewrite them. Don't add that to your ammunition to just beat the shit out of yourself. I'm not speaking to you, but just in general, like we can get into that habit of oh fuck, I'm saying it wrong, and then we add that to the level of things that we're hard on ourselves. So like, have grace for the process, but every time that we can re-examine the language used and the thoughts used and whatever, it just invites a softer kind of approach with it. And over time, it just becomes easier and easier. So it's this continually evolving process, getting away from the indoctrination and the programming. But thank you for sharing that. And it's helpful to hear others going through that process as well. So appreciate that. And I will just pass it off and see if anyone else wants to jump in either on this topic or take us any which direction. You're more than welcome. All right. Well, I mentioned that was the end of my written questions for today. So I'll just put it out there and see if anybody else, we've got just a little bit of time. If anybody else wants to jump in today, if you got anything else on your mind, any questions to cover. As I mentioned, you can always send me questions if you're listening to the recording or can't make the live calls. You can always send me questions. So feel free to do that any which way. On Telegram, it's at Justin Carpenter, all one word, is my username. As Darth mentioned, and as I often mentioned, there are people who try and impersonate me and my picture and use my name and picture and whatever else, but they cannot copy the username field. So that's what's followed by the @ symbol. And mine is Justin Carpenter, all one word. So that's how you can reach me. If you have any doubts, just go to justincarpenter.org /links, and you can find the links to all of my stuff. There's a contact, or there's a connect tab as well, to where you can send a message directly to the website if you have any concerns or questions, or just write a public comment asking a question, or asking if you who is this or that, and I'll be happy to help any which way. So appreciate all the questions that have been sent. So I'll just give another pause and see if anybody else wants to jump in before we wrap up today. Hey, Belinda, go ahead, sister. Belinda, did you have something to share?
Hi, Justin. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hey, what a beautiful conversations again. Yes, thank you for that, everybody. I was thinking about names also, and that our parents find our name. They get it because the names are frequencies and have value in gematria. So how could parents choose a good name for us? Do you know what I'm trying to say? because it's difficult to put it into words. That our parents, maybe they get the name from God, and because your name is a beautiful name with a frequency, and my name, and it's suits us. So, have you ever thought about those things? I hope you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's a great
Okay.
question. Yeah, it's a great question. So God works through always. God even works through the ego and how the ego moves about. So there's nothing that happens here that has not had divine influence. So with our name given to us when we're born, there's absolutely divine influence bringing that inspiration to our parents when they chose to give us that name. And so there's nothing is coincidence, nothing's accidental. So it does happen with a purpose. And there is a beauty that can be looked into. I mean, there's a lot that can be found based on the name that found us in that time and what it means. And of course, deeper lookings and things like gematria and other ways you can find other aspects within that just make that very powerful in that sense. So yeah, there's divine movings within all of it. But just as we mentioned before, it's to recognize that maybe that was a name that came to me for a reason, to teach me something and share with me in that ways, but I don't need to stay identified with it. I can still use it. There's nothing wrong with using a name as long as we want to. But there's a difference between that and then being identified with it as if I am that name, and then that name has power over me. So yeah, it's a great question, and I think there's a lot to sort of discovering deeper meanings behind our names and where they come from, and just seeing why that energetic frequency was drawn to us during that time. So yeah, that's what I got to share there.
Yes, thank you. Beautiful.
Yeah, Darth, did you have something you wanted to add there?
I did. So there's a scripture. It's Ephesians chapter 13. Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 14. It says, "For this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named." So our names are divine in nature, and our names, all names, are borrowed actually from the absolute divine. So the absolute divine itself cannot be contained by any one name. However, within the absolute divine are contained all names of both good and evil. And so all of the names that we have actually don't belong to us. All names actually belong to the absolute divine. And so we actually borrow these names from our parent, and then we use them, but they're actually not ours. And that's why, because they come from the divine, that means that they're sacred. And so we have a responsibility to keep our names pure and clean and honorable. There's another scripture, Revelation chapter 3 and verse 12. It says, "The one who is victorious, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. I will write on them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, who is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name." So this shows a divine principle that those that work on keeping themselves pure, and those that work on storing up treasure on heaven, if we acquire the name of the divine or a divine name, that shows a correspondence in attribute and essence, and that it's something to be worked for. And then a lot of ancient scriptures also talk about when someone acquires a special relationship with the divine, their name is changed. For example, Abram. So Abram leaves the land of Ur, and goes on a journey per the instructions of God. And God makes a covenant with Abram and changes his name to Abraham, and changes the name of his wife from Sarai to Sarah. And then we have the same thing with Jacob and Israel. So when we strive to achieve divinity, often there is a change of name that is inspired by the divine. So for like when I was naming my children, I didn't just pick a name that I thought was nice sounding. I looked at the meanings. So for example, my oldest son his name is Jonathan Armand. So Jonathan means given by the Lord, and then Armand means a soldier. So when you put the two names together, it's a soldier that has been given by the Lord. And my son has lived up to that name. He's a very strong young man, and he serves, because that's what a soldier does. And he serves the family, and he is dedicated, and I'm very proud of him. But I chose each of the names of my kids because of the meanings of the names. And then I try to live up to the meaning of my own name. So that's one of the things that parents can do. However, there comes a time when a person comes to age, and if our children want to choose a new name, or they want to borrow one, well, then that's something that we want to allow them to do, so that they can stay rooted in their sovereignty.
Yes, my daughter, her name is Zenia, and her second name is Rosita, but she uses Rosita on social media and sometimes other names. But her name, so as I call her, Zenia, based on the Zen Buddhism, she don't use that often, but only I and my mother. Yes, and my son, his name is Tyrone, and that's is a very strong name also. Throne, and yeah, beautiful name. Also the meaning of it, it's I can find the words in English, but it's a very powerful name. He is very powerful. I don't see him anymore now, but it's a strong name, and he has a strong character. But thank you very much. Very interesting, very beautiful set.
Yeah, thanks, Belinda. Thanks for the great question. And yeah, thanks, Darth. Yeah, does anyone else want to jump in, ask a question, take us any which direction, either on this topic or otherwise? Feel free. All right. Well, if anyone does feel like jumping in while I'm going through sort of closing stuff, feel free to jump in at any point. So just a reminder, next week I will be taking off from this show. I will be down in Orlando just for about 5 days, I think. So if anyone's in the area and wants to come travel, feel free, definitely reach out if you want to connect. And then after that point, I will be likely shifting this show to a different time. So I'll be posting a poll to just see what time suits best for everybody. And yeah, so this has been a really wonderful show today. I do want to go over the closing song that we'll be covering. So just going to pull up the lyrics here. This song is called Line of Fire by Junip. So I see this as kind of like line of fire. The line of fire being like the connection point to the experience, or you could look at it as like the line of fire, that narrow pathway within leading to the fire, which is the illumination. Or it could just be like the convergence point between metaphysical and physical. So those were some things that kind of jumped out at me as I was going through these lyrics. It's a really beautiful song, and I don't know if I'm really capturing the depth of what's trying to be spoken, but this is what I see, at least. So what would you do if it all came back to you? Each crest of each wave, bright as lightning. What would you say if you had to leave today? Leave everything behind, even though for once you're shining. So I wonder if this is kind of referring to when we maybe leave this experience. If we reach that pinnacle and reunify with the creator, the source. So if it all came back to you, each crest of each wave, bright as lightning, where we converged all memories of this experience together. If you had to leave everything behind, even though for once you're shining. So we raise all the way up to that top pinnacle point. And then it's just you, and God. And then eventually it's just you. Maybe. I'm not sure if that's what it's being referred to here, but that's what I see. So standing on higher ground, but when you hear the sounds, you realize it's just the wind. And you notice it matters who and what you let under your skin. So you hear the sounds, you realize it's just the wind, and you notice it matters who and what you let under your skin. So kind of what we were talking about today with the names and giving that power, having that give power, letting that take power over us because we're identifying with it. So giving an avenue for us to be controlled in some way. So maybe realizing that. If put to the test, would you step back from the line of fire? Hold everything back, all emotions and desires. So maybe the line of fire being like immersing ourselves into the external experience. If we pull back from that, is that meditation? Is that going within? Could be. So what would we do if we hold everything back, all emotions and desires? Convince yourself to be someone else and hold back from the world. Your lack of confidence, what you choose to believe in, dictates your rise or fall. So, yeah, just the experience in convince yourself to be someone else when we take on those identities and we sort of take on a false persona, and it is ultimately very limiting. And our lack of confidence in what we choose to believe in dictates our rise or fall. So do we have faith, or are we guided by fear? Do we rise or do we fall? With no one else around you, no one to understand you, no one to hear your calls, look through all your dark corners. When you're back up against the wall, step back from the line of fire. So maybe this is like the eucatastrophe, that falling down to that rock bottom moment where it is just you. We are alone, but then we convert that alone into all one, realizing the connection, that separation was never inherent. So when we're back against the wall, we step back from that line of fire. So then it repeats. What would you do if it all came back to you? Each crest of each wave, bright as lightning. I'd do the same as you, would do the same as you. What you choose to believe in dictates your rise or fall. With no one else around you, no one to understand you, no one to hear your calls. Look through all your dark corners when you're backed up against the wall. So in that point where change is the greatest, on that precipice, do we step back from the line of fire? And it repeats the line of fire 8 times, perhaps referring to the infinite 8 of this experience, and the rising and the falling and all throughout. So I don't know. That's some some things I see in here, but it's just a beautiful song in general. So I'm sure you'll love it. So I'm going to close this out with this song and just again say thank you for all the wonderful sharings today, the great questions. And I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Like I said, I do plan on doing a watch party sometime in the next few days. So I'll keep you posted there. And then after that point, we'll take a little break and then I'll come back in a couple weeks. So I love you all so very much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are, and take care. Until next time. Bye, guys.